Good morning. So it is Monday, so we're going to do the big Bible study that we're going through, the promises of Abraham, the promise to Abraham, and it was passed down to Isaac to inherit, to be a mighty nation and inherit all the promises that God had promised to Abraham. So there's going to be a lot of reading today, but I'll try to not stumble over my words so much. So in Genesis 21 and 5, Genesis 21 and 5, if you'd like to go there, it says, and when Abraham, so we know that in our last study that the promise that Abraham would have a son with Sarah had come to fruition. We'll go back a little bit back and then go forward. So in Genesis 21:5 it says, and Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And then in 21:6, and Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And 7. And then in 21:7 it says, and she said, who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And then in Genesis 21:8, and the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. So it was joy that came into their life after they were very old and had even given up all hope of having a child together because of their age, and especially because of Sarah's age. And so we've seen how that God worked that out. There is nothing too hard for God. And it's weaned. So then in 21, we're going to read through 17 through 21. Genesis 21, 17 through 21. Basically what had happened up to this point was that when Isaac was weaned and they had a great feast, Sarah seen that the handmaid's child was mocking Isaac, and she seen this as being a huge problem. So Sarah said that you should send away Ishmael, because when Isaac was weaned, Ishmael was mocking Isaac. And Sarah told Abraham, you need to send Ishmael away. The bondmaid son should not inherit with our son. And that troubled Abraham, but God told Abraham, and God said to Abraham in verse 12 of chapter 21, and God said unto Abraham, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman. In all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. So they do send the handmaid and Ishmael, his son, away. And they were in the wilderness, and all the water that they had been used up. And Hagar, the handmaid, said, I can't bear to see my son to die. So basically what she did was she put him away from her so she couldn't see him die from thirst. And I'm sure they were out in elements and all that. So she put him under a brush of shade, and she went and sat down over against him in a good way off, as it were a bow shot. For she said, let me not see the death of the child. And she sat over against him and lifted up her voice, and she wept. So we're going to read 17 through 21, what happens with Ishmael. And God heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven, and said unto her, What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. So the beginning, or when the first time she fled from the face of Sarah, God heard her prayer and listened to her prayer. But the second time we see that Ishmael was a lad. I don't know how old he was when all this had happened, but he heard the prayer of Ishmael at this time, and God heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven, and said unto her, What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him to thine hand, for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the bottle with water, and gave the lad to drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew, and he dwelt in the wilderness, and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. So we know he grew, he provided for himself, he was an archer, and his mother found him a wife. And we know that Ishmael grew, and he became a great man. And if you keep reading through there, you'll see that a lot of stuff happens. And then a lot of stuff happened. And we know that in the end that Ishmael had 12 sons, and they become great. They become tribes. There were so many children from his sons that they become actual tribes. And God blessed him and blessed his children, as he told Abraham that he would do. Don't worry about the child, he will become a great nation, and he did. And then in Genesis 23, I'm going to read 1 and 2. 23, 1 and 2. And Sarah was 107 years old and these were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Karjarabah. The same is Hebron in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And then in chapter 19 of 23, it says, and after this, Abraham buried his wife, Sarah his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, for the same is Hebron in the land of Canaan. So we know that was going to be the promised land where she was buried. We find that out when the children of Israel were departed from Egypt, and they went and they sojourned in the wilderness because God knew that there was going to be warriors and people, and he didn't want them to faint because of war. When people seen this great nation coming, of course they think they're not taking my land. But God gave them that promised land, and we find that out reading on into Genesis and Exodus and all that. I just thought that was interesting that she was buried in the promised land. And we also know that Abraham also, when he died, he was buried with Sarah, his wife. So in Genesis 24:1, it says that Abraham was old and well stricken in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. So imagine how great that would be if everything we put our hand to was just blessed, and we just seen all kinds of rewards for it. But when you follow God and you have faith in God, that's the things he can do for you. And then in Genesis 24:4, it says, um, basically, Abraham is telling his servant to go to his country and to his kindred and to get Isaac a wife of his and Sarah's people. Because Sarah was his half-sister. It was the daughter of his father and another woman. And he thought that these people had, obviously because of Abraham following God, we know that there was something there with them, some kind of spiritual connection that would lead them to God. So it was a safe bet if he went and found a wife of his people, they would have some of those same qualities and the same thoughts of God that Abraham had as he was growing up as well. And then in Genesis 24:10, and the servant took 10 camels of his master and departed, and for all the goods of his master were in his hand. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia and to the city of Nahor. And it talks about Ishmael having the 12 sons. If you want to look that up, it's in Genesis 25. It goes 12 through 16. That's Genesis 25, 12 through 16. And so Abraham made his servant to promise to get a wife, and his servant said, well, what if they don't want to come with me? And Abraham said, well, if you go, and he said, God's going to bless you and where you go. But if they peradventure they won't give you a wife of them, then you're free from the oath. So he goes down, he has all the goods of Abraham, like all his treasures. And he goes down to get Isaac a wife. And when he was going, in chapter 11, he said he made the camels to kneel down without the city by the well of water at the time of the evening, even the time when women go out to draw water. So they had gone a long journey. He kneeled the camels by the well. He's waiting for the women to come out to draw water, and he says a prayer to God. He says to God, the servant says to God, whichever damsel comes out and offers me to drink and my camels to drink also, I will know that is the one you've chosen for Isaac. So here he doesn't go by his own judgment, other than if this damsel that comes out and she is willing to water my camels. And remember, there are 10 camels here. This is a job, because these camels probably haven't drank for miles and miles, and they will be very thirsty. So this damsel, the one that he thinks will be appropriate for Isaac, is a hard worker. She is helpful to her fellow human man, and she is even helpful to his animals. And she doesn't care how long it's going to take her to water them. I mean, that's something to take into account. She's given her time and her service to others and to their animals. And this is a good woman. So he knows that whoever would offer this would be a very good woman, and someone that would be worthy of all the riches his master has, and to be a wife to Isaac, who inherited the promise that God would make a great nation from him. And then we also know that, and it came to pass before he was even done praying. He wasn't even done praying yet, and before he could even finish his prayer, God had already set a time frame that he knew what this prayer was going to be, and he knew what sign that this servant would ask for, because this is a good servant. You know, he was someone trusted by Abraham, so he must have been also a good man. And before he had even, in chapter 15 of 24, chapter 24, verse 15, and it came to pass before he had even done speaking, that behold, Rebekah came out, who was born of Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, and Abraham's brother with Nahor, Abraham's brother, with her pitcher upon her shoulder. So she was like a granddaughter to Abraham's brother. And the damsel was very fair to look upon, a virgin, neither had any man known her. And she went down to the well and filled her pitcher and came up. And the servant ran to meet her and said, Let me, I pray thee, drink a little water of thy pitcher. And she said, Drink, my lord. And she hasted and let down her pitcher upon her hand and gave him drink. And when she had done giving him drink, in 19, and when she had done giving him drink, she said, I will draw water for thy camels, and also they that have until they have done drinking. So she didn't give them a little water. She gave them water upon water until the camels were full of water, till they were done drinking. So she didn't just go halfway. She went all the way. And this took time, and it took labor. And she hasted and emptied the pitcher into the trough, and she ran again to the well and drew water and drew for all his camels. And the man, wondering at her, held his peace at whether the Lord had made his journey prosperous or not. So he was amazed by her because of the work and the labor that she had to do to fill his 10 camels full with water. So he just watched her and was amazed by this woman. And it came to pass, as the camels had done drinking, that the man took a golden earring of 1/2 shekel weight, and 2 bracelets for her hand, and 10 shekels weight of gold. So we know he had all the treasures of Abraham's household with him. So he was blessing her because of her hard work and her diligence to do what needed to be done and make sure his camels were comforted with water, and he was comforted with water. And said, What daughter is, and then he said, Whose daughter art thou? Tell me, I pray thee, is there room in thy father's house to lodge in? So this was the lady that he had prayed for, that came true, but he didn't know which daughter she was, or if she was the household of Abraham. And she said unto him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, which she bare unto Nahor, which is Abraham's brother. She said, moreover, unto him, we have both straw and provender enough, and room to lodge in. So here, she didn't just offer the water. Now she's offered them a place to stay and food to eat, for hay for the camels. And the man bowed his head and worshipped the Lord. So you can imagine this girl, she had just done all this work. She has just offered her home for them to lodge in, and for the camels, and a place for the camels to stay and to eat. And all of a sudden, this man just starts worshiping the Lord. And I'm sure that was a sight to behold as well. And the man bowed down and he worshiped the Lord. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of my master Abraham, who hath not left destitute my master of his mercy and his truth. I being in the way, the Lord led me to the house of my master's brethren. So he's seen that he couldn't have done this on his own. God had to lead him to this place and lead him to the house of his master's brother. And the damsel ran and told them of her mother's house these things. And Rebekah had a brother, and his name was Laban. And Laban ran out unto the man, unto the well. And it came to pass, when he saw the earring and the bracelets upon his sister's hands, when he heard the words of Rebekah his sister, saying, Thus spake the man unto me. And he came unto the man, and behold, he stood by the camels at the well. So she ran and told her brother what was going on, what had happened. And so he ran out. He didn't just wait for them to come, but he ran out because this was such a thing, and that it was amazing to him. He had to see this man and had to hear what was going on with this man, why he was there. And I'm sure they didn't even know Abraham was still alive or dead when he had left them, because there was not like internet, phones, and all this stuff. And he said, "Come in, thou blessed of the Lord. Wherefore standest thou without? For I have prepared the house and room for the camels." So there was a lot of work going on. And these people, Abraham's people, believed in God, and he knew that this man was blessed of the Lord because of the story that had happened. He knew God had led him there, and he went and he prepared his house and he prepared his barn for shelter for the camels. He was working as well. We can't get anything if we just sit still. We have to be working to get any kind of blessings. We can't just sit and do nothing and expect God to bless us. He loves work. You know, it says idle hands are the devil's workmanship. He loves hands that have purpose and have work to do and do that work. And the man came into his house, and he ungirdled his camels, and gave straw and provender for the camels, and water to wash the man's feet and the men that were with him. So we know that not only was he opening up his house to this one servant, but all the men that came with him that led the 10 camels, and he was ready for all of them, and he washed all of their feet. And you know, I believe in that day, from what I understand, is they wore sandals, so the sand and everything would get in their feet. So that was not an easy job. That took a lot of work to wash these men's feet. And Laban did that himself. He was the master of the house at this time, and he did that. The master of the house bent down and washed these men's feet that came with the camels and with Abraham's trusted servant. And the man came into and in 33, and there was set meat before him to eat. But he said, "I will not eat until I have told you mine errand." And Laban said, and he said, "Speak on." So he's like, "I can't eat until I'm finished telling you why I'm here, what I need." And he said, "I am Abraham's servant. The Lord hath blessed my master greatly, and he is become great, and he hath given him flocks and herds and silver and gold and men servants and maid servants and camels and asses. And Sarah, my master's wife, had borne a son to my master when he was old, and unto him hath he given all that he hath." So everything that Abraham had, even more than just the stuff of his household, he gave the fields, the land, the camels, the asses, everything he had. And he gave them all to Isaac, because he knew that God had passed that promise to Isaac to become a mighty nation. And my master made me swear, saying, "Thou shalt not take a wife to my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose land I dwell, but thou shalt go to my father's house and to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son." And I said unto my master, Peradventure the woman will not follow me. And he said unto me, "The Lord before whom I walk will send an angel with thee, and prosper thy way, and thou shalt take a wife for my son of my kindred and of my father's house. Then shalt thou be clear from my oath when thou comest to my kindred, and if they not give thee one, thou shalt be clear of my oath." And I came this day into the well, and I said, "O Lord of my master Abraham, if now thou do prosper the way which I go, behold, I stand by the well of water. And it shall come to pass that when the virgin cometh forth to draw water, and I say to her, Give me, I pray thee, a little water of thy pitcher. And she say unto me, Both drink thou, and I will also draw for thy camels. Let the same be the woman whom the Lord hath appointed out for my master's son." And before I had done speaking in my heart, behold, Rebekah came forth with her pitcher on her shoulder, and she went down into the well and drew water. And I said unto her, Let me drink, I pray thee. And she made haste, and let down her pitcher from her shoulder, and said, Drink, and I will give thy camels drink also. So I drank, and she made the camels drink also. And I asked her and said, Whose daughter art thou? And she said, The daughter of Bethuel, Nahor's son, which Michal bare unto him. And I put an earring upon her face, and bracelets upon her hands. And I bowed down my head, and worshipped the Lord, and blessed the Lord God of my master Abraham, which hath led me in the right way, to take my master's brother's daughter unto his son. And now if ye will deal kindly and truly with my master, tell me, and if not, tell me, that I may turn to the right hand or to the left hand. Then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, The thing proceedeth from the Lord. We cannot speak thee good or bad or good. So they're saying, if this thing comes from the Lord, then we're not going to say good or bad. But he said, Behold, Rebekah is before thee. Take her and go, and let her be thy master's son's wife, as the Lord hath spoken. So they trusted the Lord. That's the same thing Abraham did. So you see why it was important for Abraham to get Isaac's wife from those people, from his people who he knows trusts the Lord, believes the Lord. And it came to pass when Abraham's servant had heard behold, Rebekah is before thee, take her, as it's been spoken of the Lord. And the servant brought forth jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment, and gave them to Rebekah. And he gave also to her brother and to her mother precious things. And they did eat and drink, and the men that were with him, and they tarried all night. And they rose up in the morning and said, Send me away unto my master. And her brother and her mother said, Let the damsel abide with us a few days, at least 10, after that she shall go. And he said unto them, Hinder me not, seeing the Lord hath prepared my way. Send me away, that I may go to my master. And they said, We will call the damsel and inquire of her mouth. So they were okay with it, but they were like, it's really up to Rebekah, so we will see what she wants to do. And they called Rebekah and said unto her, Wilt thou go with this man? And she said, I will go. And they sent away Rebekah and Rebekah their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant, and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said unto her, Thou art our sister, be thou the mother of thousands, of millions, and let thy seed possess the gate of those which hate them. And Rebekah arose and her damsels, and they rode upon the camels and followed the man. And the servant took Rebekah and went his way. And Isaac came from the way of the well Lahiah Rory. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, for he dwelt in the south country. And so we know that Abraham sent Isaac away from him to dwell in this country, in the south country, because Abraham also took concubines, and he had more children, and he gave those children gifts, but they did not inherit the promise of God to be a great nation as Isaac did. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field at eventide, and he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, the camels were coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, and she lighted off the camel. For she said unto the servant, What man is this that walketh in the field to meet us? And the servant has said, It is my master. Therefore she took a veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. And Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. So now we see how up to this point now Isaac has a wife, and we're going to go into what happens next after he has his wife, about his children. We know that she bears him two children. They were twins, and we'll read about that, Jacob and Esau. And we'll get into that next week for our big study. And I did have a small study to do, and we'll do that tomorrow. And that's going to be on spiritual conviction. We will do that tomorrow. I couldn't get time this weekend to do that and send that out, so we will definitely do that. And I know we like to end with a Bible verse, and I don't have one, so I'm just going to grab one. And I'm going to use St. Mark 9:25. And Jesus said unto him, If thou canst believe, all things are possible unto him that believeth. So if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. So we believe that God can work anything out for us. He will. Whatever struggle you're going through, pray, believe that God can do it, and he will do it. And that's all I have for today. And we will pick up on our big study next week. And it's just going to get even more and more detailed. And we'll try to grace the service to get to where we need to get. But thank you. I love you. God loves you. And I just pray this blesses one person today. Thank you. Bye.